Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cash, Kiss, and Confession podcast. And as always, we don't have HDTV love and sometimes bluff. We have stories about real cash, real confessions, and of course, real estate. Today is no different. And I have an amazing guest again, as always. And his name is translated from Jewish as God is grace. So can you imagine this guy? And he is true grace. When I met him first time, I was like, people like this, men like this do exist? Like being big by statue and have this soft, caring, loving personality. Guys, and it was literally from first glance, he was staying on stage, he was introducing the guest whose name was Pace Morby, and I'm like, that's so cool, people like this do exist. And then we started talking, and here we are. Besides that, he has 4 sons, 4 boys, which is, to me, it's absolutely crazy. I have 2 girls. He has stunning, beautiful wife, and she is a hard worker, the biggest supporter of her husband. He is the biggest enthusiast of real estate investments. He runs a real estate investment business, and also he's carrying a torch for other people through his experiences, through his life struggle. So, without further ado, Sione Inoke, welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored, and I was really flattered you asked me to be on your podcast.
It's fantastic. Listen, seriously, I'm so excited. And also, I'm obsessed with people's names. And when I heard your name, I'm like, Sion is the tallest mountain in Israel. I was there, I saw it. And our Zion Park, which is not really Zion, it's really Sion, but we won't go into all religious stuff. So I'm totally fascinated with names. Listen, anyway, now I'm absolutely curious. Why the hell in the world you decided to go into real estate and say, yeah, like you woke up one day, it's like, I will go into this business and start doing things.
Yeah. So when I decided to get into real estate, I didn't know what I was getting into. My wife and I had talked about, getting a rental for ourselves, and maybe acquiring a few rentals later. But we just talked about it, and so Facebook spies and hears us, and so I was on Facebook one day, and there was an advertisement for, hey, come learn about real estate investing. And it was a free seminar. So I was like, okay. I mean, we talked about getting rentals. Let's see what this is about. So I go to this seminar in Provo. Just there was a couple of people that showed up, and they didn't. It was funny, like they didn't talk about anything, but I was fascinated. So they said, hey, this is just a taste. If you come to our 3-day seminar or a 3-day conference, we'll teach you everything. So I was like, fine, yeah, I'll pay whatever to join. I think it was like $170. So I signed up and I go to this conference. And honestly, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I had an assumption that in order to be a real estate investor, you also had to, be an agent, a realtor.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the conference was really cool. It actually, I learned stuff there. So I was thankful for that. At the end of the 3 days, they try to get you to sign up for their $50,000, group. And they say, hey, we'll give you all of our tools, all of our knowledge, and it's free. It's at your disposal at any time. You'll have a coach and everything. And I was actually tempted. I didn't
For 50 grand. Seriously, I heard it right?
Yeah, 50 grand. There's I just was talking to somebody at the last meetup, squad up meetup, and they said they paid $100 for something similar.
You
And
see, and I missed it. And guess what? I was in Salt Lake. I look outside and it was raining. I'm like, I'm not driving to Taylor Swift. This is honest, true confession. Now we're starting with confessions at the beginning. Listen, but anyway, I just wanted to say it because, yeah, I literally wanted to go, but I look outside. I'm like, I'm not driving.
it's okay. It was okay. As far as the meetups, we can get to that later. But yeah, so I was tempted to sign up and for the 50 grand. I didn't have the 50 grand, but I was like, well, I can figure it out,
Yep.
But luckily I didn't. But I was sitting there. I was like, there's got to be a way to learn about this. That's when I found out about Bigger Pockets, the Bigger Pockets podcast, which is hugely helpful. I found books about investing. So I just dove in, and initially I was going to be a flipper. I was like, I'm flipping. Like, that's what they taught at the conference mostly. And then that's what, I was listening to on the podcasts and reading books about. And so one of the podcasts, they talked about going to, there's things called RIAs, Real Estate Investor Association meetings. And we have a couple here in Utah. And when they mentioned that, I was like, okay, cool. I'll check that out and see what it's about. So I went to one. It was interesting. I was new. I was kind of shy. I didn't know what I was doing. Didn't really talk to many people, but super shy. I'm okay with talking to people, but because I didn't know what I was doing or what it was about, I talked to a handful. Then I went to another one. It was a December meetup, and I walked into the room, and they had these tables against the wall, and on the tables there were little plaques, or like papers that were labeled. One was like short-term rentals, one was land development, one was property management and flipping. And so they had tables, and behind each table there was an investor that kind of specialized in that category. And so you could sit down. It's like a speed dating session. So everybody got like 5 minutes, and then once the 5 minutes is up, you can go talk to another investor at a different table, and so on. So I wanted to talk to the short-term rental person, but she had a huge line. It was super popular at the time. And next to her was this table, and it said creative finance. And there was just a guy, nobody was talking to him. And
oh my gosh,
I had
what year
heard
was that? Dylan, what year was that?
The end of 2019.
Oh my,
So
it's
December.
like literally recent.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know because, yeah, it's very interesting because nobody was interested in creative finance, even though seller finance existed for thousands of years. That's what I discovered. So that continue. Sorry, I have to
Yeah.
give my 5 cents.
Well, yeah, and listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, I had heard people mention creative finance. I didn't understand. I didn't know what it was about. But since nobody was talking to him, and there was a huge line next to him at the short-term rental, I was like, I'm just gonna sit down and see what this is about. So I sat down with them, and this was I would say in this journey of mine in real estate investing, this is one of the pivotal moments for me. So I sit down. The gentleman's name is Jeff Rappaport. To this day, he's still, like, I consider him like just instrumental. I still will reach out to him every once in a while. I still reach out and tell him I appreciate him. But he was the one who introduced me to wholesaling. Again, I had heard about it, but I didn't know what it was. But he also taught me creative finance. And when I sat down and talked to him, I was like, I'm going to be a flipper. I'm going to be a flipper. He's like, no, you're not. I was like, what are you, like, this is all I've been studying. Like, this is all I've been taking in. I want to be a flipper. And he was like, no, He's like, the fastest way in and out of real estate investing is through flipping. And he's like, let me tell you about wholesaling. And uh, that's when I was like, whoa, okay, this is cool. So uh, I learned, he has a little mentorship program I joined. It was really inexpensive to get into, but I learned all about wholesaling through him. And at the time, at that period, I had more time than I had money. I was working a full-time job. I was in sales.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, so I did the free thing. I drove around and found ugly houses. And what's funny is they had like tools and apps that you could download.
Mm-hmm.
They still have them right now. But honestly, I just used Google Maps. I would drive around neighborhoods, and anytime I saw an ugly house in the neighborhood, I would pin it on Google Maps, and I would come home, skip trace it, which skip tracing means you just find who owns the house, and then you find that, look up their phone number records and
Yeah,
do that. So
information. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that's what I did. And what's funny is my job. I was talking to. I didn't realize I sold credit repair services,
Okay, I got it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so some of these people that I was talking to were actually motivated sellers, and I didn't realize it until after I realized what a motivated seller was. And so when I'd be talking to people, I mean, we weren't supposed to, but I got my phone out and I copied their name and phone number, and then I called them after work and said, "Hey, we spoke earlier. You said you were in a situation. I want to see if I can help you out." So that's actually how I got my first deal. And so I partnered with Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
It was a virtual deal in Clear Lake, Wisconsin.
Oh my gosh.
So the town has like 1,000 people, the population. So it was a crazy situation. But Clear Lake, Wisconsin is where I got my first deal. That was where I got my feet wet, dipped my toes into wholesaling. And Jeff did most of the work. It ended up being a $45,000 wholesale deal, and then and then shortly after that, I got my next deal all on my own, solo, from my driving for dollars. That was a crazy story too. So that was how I got my
Uh-huh.
start into real estate investing.
Yeah, we have a really good crazy story. But guys, just listening to Sion, like takeaway points, and usually I don't do it, but they're such great points. First of all, you don't have to pay to get your leads. That's one. Even with skip tracing, whatever people are preaching, you know what? It's so hard to use through people, source.com, stuff like that. But if you don't have money, that's what you do. This is first. Second, speaking of wholesaling, even 1,000 people town still has buyers. So you can do wholesaling even in teeny meeny, I don't know, maybe in North Dakota or, some places in Alaska. And I grew up close to Alaska. There are towns like 50 people, but still 50 people, someone's still buying houses. That's the craziest part. So I just wanted to mention it. If you didn't notice, I hope you did, but just reiterate it and explain what happened. And driving for dollars is not really fun because you're driving and you're looking for houses, and it's like, what you're supposed to do next? That's actually put a sticky note on the door. Hey, neighbor, call me. Maria or Sion or whatever your name is. So that's that. And now I know you have this absolutely freaking crazy story because I heard this story from young gentleman, and his name is like literally drum roll, Jesus. Like, how can you be like literally Jesus asked for help from Sion? Ta-da! So now I want to hear this story.
Yeah. So Yeah, that was a fun one. So, uh, my wholesaling business right now, we focus on working with agents and working with other wholesalers. And I'm building a company that really focuses on dispo. I have a goal to become the number one dispo hub in Utah.
Awesome.
And
Love
so
it.
any wholesalers that can't find a buyer for their deal, I'm building relationships with lots of buyers right now. And you know, the goal is to when wholesalers can't find a buyer, hey, you know, if there's 3-4 days left on your due diligence and you still don't have a buyer, like,
Yeah.
hey, let me see if Sione can help me, right? And so,
Mhm.
so that's the business that we're working. But Jesus is another wholesaler here in Utah. He works in southern Utah, in Utah County, which is, you know, Provo or in that area if you're familiar with Utah. And then there's a town called St. George, which is on the south end of Utah, and that's where Jesus is located. And so uh, he reached out to me, and he's like, "Hey, I don't know what to do. I have the situation," and I was like, "Okay, cool. Tell me about it." So there was a seller that he had locked up a contract to purchase a house, and he was going to do a creative deal, and then we ended up transitioning to a cash deal, but that comes later. So uh, the situation was he was working with, I don't know if they were actually married, but a couple,
Mm-hmm.
and so there was a man and a lady, and they were on the title together, and uh, it was a bad relationship, bad breakup situation. The the gentleman on title decided that he just wanted to be done, so he ended up like kind of sneakily uh, finding a buyer. Well, another investor reached out to him and said, "Hey, let me buy your equity. You know, I'll just pay you $25,000 right now, and then I'll take the rest of it." And
They had equity in the house, correct? And I don't
yeah,
remember, were they in foreclosure situation or it was just because of breakup they decided to sell the property, but it was significant amount of equity in the house, correct?
yeah, good questions. Yeah, so so it was a pre foreclosure
Mm-hmm.
situation. Um, so the house was getting foreclosed on, and uh, there wasn't a lot of time left. And uh, at the time, I didn't. I still. And the thing with real estate investing is you're always learning. There's always something to learn. We've closed over 60 deals in 2 years, and there's something to learn on almost everyone. And so uh, I didn't know you could extend a foreclosure date. And I don't know if they had tried to already or not, but that's beside the point. Anyway, so back to the situation. The gentleman in this situation decided to sell his half of the equity for $25,000 to this random investor who, in all honesty, was kind of a shady character. Um, from what I understand, researched, uh, these guys call pre foreclosures and they're looking for those bitter relationships, and they'll offer to one spouse like, hey, let me buy your half of the equity, and then they'll quit claim deed, which means they'll basically say, hey, here's uh, I'm signing my rights to the equity over to you, and it's just done like that.
They
And so,
filed quit claim deed for guys. If you don't know what quit claim deed is, in few terms, pretty much you assign not just interest, you assign everything, including liens on a property. That's why it's called quit claim deed. and you remove yourself, because if you're the person who is doing the claim, you're removing yourself from the situation. But everything what comes with the situation, including foreclosure, you assign to another person, and this person deals with it. And it was a strategic situation, because obviously these guys, they're honestly the scammers, and they take advantage of other people. So, and now you guys end up with this weird, triage, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a really interesting situation because I had to try to track this guy down. I didn't know who, all I had was a name.
Wow.
But to be honest, he's a ghost. I skip traced him. I did a Facebook search. I did an Instagram search. I did like everything you can think of to try to find this guy and see if I could like figure out how to get him off of the deed. Because if we're buying the property, he has to sign because now he's technically half owner.
Mm-hmm.
And so the lady in this situation, I don't want to use any names, but the lady in this situation, she was like, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna lose everything, and we were like, we're doing everything we can. I'm gonna try to help out and find a situation. So I can't remember how I got the number. I think the original gentleman who signed himself off of the property, I think I got his number. I called him. I was like, hey, I need the numbers for those people that you were talking to. And so I got one of the guys' names.
Mm-hmm.
We'll call him Derek. And then I got the other guy's name from him. He's like, yeah, you can call him. We can call him David.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a hold of David's information, who was the one who was on the quitclaim deed. So that's how I ended up getting his number. And he didn't answer. I texted him. Didn't answer. Called him. Didn't answer. Finally, I was like, okay. So I looked up on county records. I was like, I wonder if he owns any houses around. And so I looked up his name on county records, and it turns out there was a house that his name was tied to in Payson. I was like, oh, perfect. This is the one.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually I had to play detective. I had to look up the address, and then I found other phone numbers. I ended up finding a number to his son, and then I don't know what happened, but I think his son told him, hey, this guy's looking for you. And then he finally answered. Anyway, so.
Wow. But listen, that's again the story. If you're in a situation, you have to play a detective and like literally use every possible tool in your disposal. And guess what? County records are gold. Like
Yep.
literally, county records are gold. And I'm so happy that he didn't have LLC that is registered in Wyoming. So you just literally got lucky, but that's another story for another day. Anyway, okay, now I want to hear what happened next.
Well, what's funny is like that property in Payson, I went and knocked on the door trying to find him. And I just wanted to like talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, turns out that it's not actually, he doesn't live there. His name's, that's the only property that has his name tied to it. But he does own lots of other properties, and they're in LLCs, and they're hidden. Like, so he is a ghost. So that was the only property that had his name on it. So, and I think it was like his sister or somebody living in it. Anyway, I talked to a neighbor because they're home. So yeah, so it was a wild situation. So finally, I get a hold of Dale or David,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm talking to him, and I'm like, hey, there's a house that you were quitclaim deeded, like we're closing on it. And he was like, no, I'm not going to sign over. You can't close on it without my signature. And I was like, we're ready to close. Like, closing's in like 3 days. Like, we got to get this done. And went back and forth with him. He was just like, no, because the strategy, from what I understand, the strategy that he uses, or that him and his group use, is they'll find those pre-foreclosure situations. They'll find those situations where the spouses don't like each other, and then they'll convince one of them, hey, I'll pay you this much. And then what will happen is you're going to be able to take everything, and your spouse won't get anything.
Mhm.
So what happens, because he's on the quitclaim deed, once it gets foreclosed on,
Mhm.
the bank will sell it at auction.
Mhm.
Now, when the bank sells it at auction, let's say, they owed $100,000, they sell it at auction for $400,000. Well, there's $300,000, right?
Mhm.
The bank gets to get their money for the mortgage, but then let's say there's, after attorney's fees and everything, let's say there's $250,000 left over.
Mhm.
Well, guess what? That money doesn't just go to the bank. That money still actually goes towards the homeowners. Okay.
But
But
majority of
a lot of people,
homeowners have no idea about that, right?
homeowners don't know, and
Mhm. Mhm.
and a lot of them just won't. They just think, oh, I just lost my house, everything's gone,
Mhm. Mhm.
and they don't, like, in their mind, they don't know that they actually still get money from it. So what happens is, because David knows the trick, he'll call after the house gets sold. He'll call and he'll claim the money, the equity
Mhm.
that was left over after all the fees and everything, and that's how he pockets his money. Because now he's half owner of the property. It gets foreclosed on. He doesn't care. He doesn't need his credit. It gets foreclosed on, and then he knows this. He knows how to claim the money, and because he's on title, he gets to be able to do that.
Oh my gosh, this is absolutely effing crazy, meaning fabulous. I do swear. So that's, listen, this is beyond crazy, because I knew only part of it, but I didn't know that part, because I was always wondering what happens, because there are lots of properties with equity. And I know so many people who don't claim their equity because the banks, for some reason, holy moly, we have money, we can play with it. Is it
Yeah.
like literally bank strategies? Because yeah, it's like, yeah, my house is foreclosed and this is it. To be honest
Yeah.
with you, I been in foreclosure situation, and this is my situation. Just I got lucky that it didn't affect my credit. It was my ex-husband who kind of screwed up. But truth is, we had equity in the house. But
Yeah.
I honestly I didn't know about that.
Yep.
So
Yep.
anyway, continue, because now I'm
So
like,
yeah, so it turns out, like, after we close on the property, if we paid everything off, there was roughly $190,000 of equity
listen,
still.
how much did you pay him? Because I know he pretty much hold you ransom, and he
Yep.
asked for money.
Yep. Yep. So
He bought this part of equity for 25, or quick claim did it, right? And then
yep.
how much money he asked?
So the unfortunate situation is, because there was a decent amount of equity, he kind of knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think he understood how much equity there was, but he knew that there was enough. And so what happened was, we had to negotiate. He was basically holding the property hostage.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm not signing anything. I'm not gonna quit claim deed anything. We were trying to just say, hey, like, let us pay you. You know, we'll double. You pay 25,000. Let us pay you 50,000,
Mm-hmm.
and then just have you quit claim deed the property over to the actual the lady.
The lady, yes.
And he wasn't going for it. He's like, no, absolutely not.
No,
And so he's like,
auction is coming, like literally it was like few days before the auction, and you can't push further.
yeah. So he's like, I'll tell you what, you pay me 125,000. Yep. 125,000, and I'll gladly sign over. So after after that, I had to call the lady and I was like, listen, this guy, unfortunately, your ex just got sucked into this, bad crowd, and they're to basically hold the property hostage. So the situation was like, it's going to go to auction. Your credit's going to take a hit. Everything's going to, fall apart, and he could potentially just get everything. I don't know what that process looks like after the auction, and because I didn't know what it looked like, I don't know what she had to do all that anyway. So I was like, look, like right now we're potentially in a situation where he could take everything, you could lose everything, and not get a dime. The other option is, we can forfeit the 125, and then there was still like 60 grand left over that she could still have, and that would at least help her move on to her next chapter. And so reluctantly, she was like, I don't know what to do. Like, that's all we can do. And so she's like, okay. So we had to get paperwork to agree that we were going to wire David 125,000, and then he was going to quit claim the deed over, and then to the lady, and then we would be able to close on it and everything. So yeah, it was a crazy situation. And what's also funny and interesting was literally this was all happening, getting all the paperwork and everything happening the day before the foreclosure, the auction. And so I was on the phone with the banks saying, listen, like, we are purchasing this property. We are ready to close on it. We are signing documents tomorrow. Like, everything, we sent over proof of funds. We sent over the closing paperwork. We sent over the contracts. We sent over everything. And they're like, well, we received it, but it can take a couple of days to process it, to get it to the right person. And I was like, no, who else can I talk to? This has to get to the right person right now. Like, this is like, we don't have time. So they're like, well, it's after hours now, because I was working on this all night. Their office closed at like 6 in the afternoon at Central Time, and I was on the phone with them until like 6:30. Like, wow, like, this needs to be done. Like, absolutely. They're like, well, now it's after hours. You're gonna have to call us tomorrow when we open. And so they opened on Eastern Time. Oh, sorry, I think it was 8 o'clock Eastern Time is when they closed. So it was 6 o'clock my time, and then they opened their office at 8 a.m., which was also 6 a.m. my time.
Yeah.
And so as soon as 6 a.m. rolled around, I called. I was like, listen, we need to get this figured out. What's going on? Where are we at? And it took like an hour. No, it took a couple hours for them to get the paperwork and get everything figured out. And the auction was at 9 a.m. I finally got confirmation at like 8:30 a.m. Okay, we're good. Auction is doesn't have to happen. So I had Jesus go down to the courthouse. Be like, hey, just be ready. Like, we're good to go. We got the paperwork. Go down to the courthouse and make sure, like, you say, nope, we're buying this. We already bought this. We're closing on it. Just in case. I actually called the auctioneer at 8:30 a.m. I was like, hey, just so you know, we're closing on this property. It's not part of the auction today. And he's looking at his notes and everything. He's like, oh, looks like it just got removed. I was like, perfect. So like literally 30 minutes before the auction, we were able to stop the foreclosure. So it was pretty cool.
My gosh, this is absolutely crazy story. I still can't digest it, because also you have to come up with funds, because the house was over $400,000. And that's like, I don't know how many people just have pocket change, like, yeah, it's 400,000 in my pocket and stuff like that. And pretty much what was the exit strategy with this property was Jesus, Jesus, you say now he will be Jesus instead of Jesus, was trying to wholesale it, or what was his plan, because he called you because he was in this crazy situation.
Yeah. So what's also interesting is he called me. He's like, I don't know, how to wholesale this. I don't know many buyers. So I actually had a buyer for it. And he loved it. He was ready to go. But I also told him, like, hey, and this was like 2 or 3 weeks before the auction date.
So you guys stopped the auction, and pretty much the strategy was to do what?
Jesus didn't have any buyers for it, so he hit me up. I lined up a buyer like several weeks earlier. But because of the whole quit claim deed situation, I told him, hey, like, here's the situation. Like, we need to get this figured out before you can even close on it. So let me figure this out before we can get you done. And because it was last minute, he had the initial hard money lined up, but he needed funds for the private money to handle the gap and the rehab funds. So he hadn't lined any of that up. And so what's crazy is I had to find a backup buyer that could close in 24 hours, or less than 24 hours. So luckily, Christina Moser saved the day. She's the GT title. So if anybody needs title work done or closings on investment properties, she's solid. I use a couple different title companies, but she definitely saved the day on this one. So
yeah, Christina is a bomb. Seriously, she is like, yeah, she's amazing. So she will be on my podcast too. So
yeah,
I'm
she's
so
got
excited.
crazy stories, I'm sure.
Yeah.
She's closing a property. I'm closing a property with her today, subject to property. That's 0 down. So that's pretty cool.
Oh my gosh, that's exciting. So the end of the story, you literally paid this guy 120,000 K to just get out of your way. You know what?
Yeah.
SOB karma is, she comes around and, when she bites you in the butt, oh my gosh, not fun. But my grandson always said, not fun. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and the situation was that came out of the equity at closing. So we had to drop the paperwork to say, hey, at closing, David's getting 125,000, leaving the rest to go to the lady seller. So so it was unfortunate that he was basically robbing her. So that was kind of the bummer of the situation. They got mixed in with the wrong people, and we were trying to help them out and do everything we could. So,
and I'm absolutely sure that the guy, what we call him, whatever Derek,
David,
right? No, David was who got the property, part of the equity in the property,
right?
But the initial her boyfriend, I'm absolutely sure he got zero because he stole his equity in the house for a quarter of even less. And when you quit claim it, you lose every right because you don't have any interest in the property.
Yeah.
Guys, so like when you do real estate investments, you run real estate business, think about it, learn about it, and know what's happening in the process. That's extremely important. So that's what my personal takeaway from this story. Now, you know what I want to know? First of all, what you found out about yourself as a person in this situation?
Yeah, as far as what I learned in this situation is like learning and growing is nonstop. Like I never stopped a foreclosure before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Never before until this deal. I learned so much, like who to contact at the bank and what that process looks like. Who needs to sign uh, for these documents, and who needs to be ready for this paperwork. And so, um, so for me, just learning and knowing that like there's continued learning, continued growth on this journey, and I promise, it's like my business is also a learning experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to be a dispo hub. So like as an entrepreneur, as a real estate investor, whatever, it's you never stop learning, you never stop growing. And we're gonna make mistakes. I lost over $100,000 on 2 flips when the market shifted.
Oh my
And
God.
the coolest thing about that is there's no better industry to be in to get that back. So um so I'm thankful that I have real estate to lean on and learn from and grow with, and that's kind of what I learned from that whole experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. Listen, and now speaking of confessions, like when we're in these situations, there is something what is going on the background, and like sometimes, at least I never hold anything back. I whatever, and it's not like okay, you don't have a filter or whatever. I do have a filter, but I prefer not to use it. So pretty much it's like how it is. And when people ask me, I'm like, I just say how it is. And I don't care. I've been doing real estate as a realtor for 7 years. I never hold back. I never been politically correct. And even in this situation, seriously, if I want to say F word, I don't care religious. If you're religious or not religious, I'll say it. So, but not everyone like me. So any like literally heartfelt confession, what you wanted to say in this situation, especially to this douchebag. I'll call him how, like literally, without any filters.
Yeah, like I might have a different approach to that. I definitely called him a scumbag. Like he just like he played dirty. What's crazy is he called me after the closing. He's like,
What?
"Hey, so you?" Yeah, he's like, "Hey, so if you need, if you want to do some more deals together, I'd love to work with you." And I'm like, "Dude, like I will never, like as soon as I hear your name, I am going to like report it. Like the way you run your business is shady. Like I just like there's nothing ethical. You're not here to help people. You're here to take advantage of people. There's a difference, right?" And
You,
so I don't know. I have great mentors and great uh, circles that just we I don't know what happened to him, what traumas he's had to go through to feel like he has to take advantage of people to build himself up. But at the same time, something did happen to him. He's had rough experiences where he just feels like he has to do that to people to feel worth. But we all know like he's not like happy. Like we all know underneath, no matter how much money he makes, no matter how many people he screws over, like we all know he knows that he's being dirty, right?
mm-hmm.
And so that can't make you feel good. And when he's laying on his deathbed, he's gonna be probably like, I probably should have done things different. Maybe not. Maybe he's like too prideful to admit that he was wrong. But I wish
Listen,
him the best. Wish him
exactly.
the
God
best.
bless him. And let me tell you, when you go up there and you lose your physical body, you still carry whatever you carry. And we won't go into that stuff because we'll turn, instead of real estate podcast, into spiritual podcast. Before that, I was so tempted, podcast prior, to start matching podcast. And I was like, no, we're in real estate. But reality is we can do everything. We can match people to find, perfect, spouses, partners. The same, we can talk about spirituality because it's all in. We cannot separate. The house is right here. My spiritual development is right here. And God is somewhere here because it's not there. It's right here. So
Yeah.
that's on that one. Listen, now I want to know about your personal life because you have 4 sons. And I heard about your wife because she gave you an amazing birthday present. I'm jealous. I'm saying exactly how it is. So you will go in April to Orlando to squad up a cool summit, and I'm not going. But anyway, just please tell me, because how I understand you and your wife. By the way, what is your name? Leon, you're here, or we froze for a second? Oh, unstable. What? No, it's something. I'm telling you, something's going on today. Probably, I don't know. It's raining in St. George. But anyway, did you hear what I said? I said, what is your wife's name?
I lost you. My wife's name is Mary.
Mary.
Yes.
Jesus, we're going with entire Bible today. I'm Maria, she's Mary, you're Sione. The story is about Jesus. Something great.
You're right. There's
funny.
It all ties together. Well, what's also interesting is my name in Tongan is Sione, and it means John, like John the Baptist. So there you go. Now we're tying in.
Yeah, and in Hebrew, God is grace. It's freaking amazing.
Yeah. So my wife is amazing. She is definitely the best part of me. She's such a hard worker. She's working 2 jobs. She doesn't have to. She's just really good at what she does. Her official title is HR director for a company, but she's really just operation. She just knows how to run operations. She knows what needs to get done, how it needs to get done, like what things need to be organized in order to get the work done. She's super business oriented, and the funny thing is she doesn't want to necessarily. She wants to, but she has a hard time working with me because my mind is unorganized. And I'm like, well, this is how. Yeah, this is how it's just gonna run like this, and it's just gonna work like this. And she's like, how? Like, what? How are you gonna get there? I'm like, we're just gonna get there. Like, it will just happen. And she's like, so she gets frustrated when I try to explain to her what I'm trying to do with my business. But she's amazing. She's beautiful. She's the most amazing person.
Yeah, I will meet her one day. So tell me about your sons. How old are they?
Yeah, so I have 4 sons. I have the 2 older ones are from our first marriage. So we have Josh, he's 25. He is in a band. I'm going to plug his band because they're actually rolling. And they're blowing up on Spotify and everything. So
wow,
his band is Cardinal Bloom, kind of indie rock, but they have over 1 million listeners, over 100,000 followers, and so they're
listen, it's awesome. Like what a pride, right?
Yeah. So that's Joe. He's an amazing guitarist and just musically just so gifted. Jordy, he is 20 and he is amazing. He graduated college and he just turned 20. He has a passion for cars. So it's crazy. He has the biggest Hot Wheels collection. He just loves hunting for certain Hot Wheels. And so He started that journey probably like four years ago. But he got an amazing Hot Wheels collection. But he is a mechanic. He started uh, uh, doing that work, and he just dives in. And he's just so like, I'm gonna figure this out. Like, I'm gonna get it done. And he's a hard worker. And I love Jordy. He's just so funny. He's the funniest human ever. And then we have two little ones. Kai, he is 9, and then Saya, who is 5. Kai,
The best age.
yes, yes. I tell Kai all the time. He has a heart of a lion. He just so kind. He's got infectious energy. He walks into it and he lights up the room, and he smiles. He just, I love it. So I'm getting emotional.
No, listen, I have
Sorry.
3 grandkids and they're all around this age. So I'm like, my heart is just like, ta-da. So you
Yeah,
can get emotional, with me, absolutely, because I'm usually sitting and crying when we start talking about children.
yeah, yeah. The last one is Saya. He is just so full of energy, just so full of life. Most creative person I've ever met. Like, he can color. He's so good at coloring. Like, it's so good at drawing. He drew a picture of Buzz Lightyear at 4, and you can actually tell it's Buzz Lightyear. Like,
Wow.
he's got the helmet. He's got the colors. Like, and he was just free-handed. It wasn't like copied from anything. I was like, well, this kid is incredible. He likes to sculpt dinosaurs. He's just got the wildest imagination. He plays with his cars, his toy cars, and he plays with the dinosaurs, and he's talking. And his imagination is incredible. I love it. So, yeah, those are my 4 incredible sons.
It's amazing because especially observing little kids, how they can be in their own world and just creating in their own world. And then us adults, we afraid to pick up the phone and call someone. And when I hear
Yeah,
like from people, oh my gosh, I'm so afraid to call, I don't know, expires, whatever. I've been in real estate, so I just, first what came to mind to me. And I'm no different. I remember calling sale by owner. I thought I would die.
mm-hmm.
But on the contrary, we're having a conversation right now and we're still alive. Surprise, surprise, right? And
Yeah,
it could be something different, not podcast. We could discuss a deal and we could be in a situation, I'm a seller, you're a buyer and stuff like that. So that's the craziest part about children, that they literally live in their world. And if you give them, I have 3.5 years old granddaughter, you give her a phone and she's on the phone talking to someone and having sales conversation about real estate. I'm not kidding you. So that's that's the craziest part about that.
yeah. I love it. I love it with
We
kids.
can learn so much from our kids. It's amazing, and it's
Absolutely.
like it's so really touchy when men get emotional because it's like again shows your soul because like I said, God is gracious, and you have Sion. Honestly, you have this grace, and like thank you so much for coming and sharing this with all of us because there will be people who are in our community who are listening, and it will be some outsiders who stumble upon on YouTube on this one. And we're sharing our stories. And the last question, word of wisdom, what would you say to our audience? Like, I don't know, whatever, it could be whatever.
Yeah, I thought a lot about this, and I was trying to think, well, do I talk about like words of wisdom with real estate? Do I talk about words of wisdom with life, or what? So I think this kind of ties into both, to be honest. Everybody, we're all going through something, right? We all have parts of ourselves that we don't want to show people.
Yes.
And that those parts of ourselves can really hold us back, whether it's in real estate, whether it's at your job, whether it's in a relationship, right? And so words of wisdom really is like, don't like, there's a lot of shame. Sometimes we feel like we have to hide ourselves. One thing is like, don't 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 feel like you have to hide, because it's just going to hold you back in real estate. It's going to hold you back in life. Sometimes it's hard, but like, there are resources. One thing I've learned: nobody's alone. You're never alone. If you just need to talk to somebody, like, there's lots of Facebook groups where you can search like, hey, I'm feeling helpless right now, right? And then there's a group that talks about like being helpless, and then you can join in and just be like, hey, you feel alone too? I feel alone. Like, let's connect, right? So I would say words of wisdom is, you are amazing, and you don't have to feel like you're less than. That, I feel like that holds so many people back. It held me back in a long time, long stretch of my life. And so, you're amazing, you're special, you're loved, you're not alone, and take action, because action is the best teacher. You can take action, you can fail miserably, but like, you learn after each failure, you learn after each lesson, and that's where true growth lies, is through the failures. So take action and love yourself. You're enough, and if you need somebody to talk to, you can hit me up.
Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. And I just want to add into it. Creation created us. If we would be unworthy, or we're not worthy of creation, we wouldn't exist. But it's very, very hard concept. But I'm so glad you brought it up, and you said, like, do not be afraid to be yourself, because it's true. It holds us back. We're so quite ashamed of our stories, and we're like, yeah, you know what? If I'll say that, people will know this part about me, and they won't like me. So
Yep.
what? Whatever. We have 8 billion people on this planet. I don't think so. Every person would say, no, I don't like you. Yeah. But guess what? If you exist, you exist. Creation loves you. So thank you for that one. And Sione, a last thing, where people can find you. And guys, I will put all information on YouTube, below YouTube, and it will be on podcast. It will be everywhere, but I want to have it on the recording just in case if you can't read.
Absolutely. So my Instagram is easy, just Sione Inoke. I'll spell that. It's SIONE INOKE. So just at Sione Inoke. The Facebook, I think you can find me. I just updated it, so it's easier to find. It's the.sione.inoke. So the.sione.inoke is how you can find my Facebook profile. I don't really use TikTok. I don't really use Twitter.
Me either.
But I think I have profiles on there, so maybe you can find me, but I just understand they don't know. My email is the number 4 sons, SUNS, not SONS. Just to play on words. So the number 4 SUNS properties, PROPERTIES @gmail.com. I'm updating that. I'm going to be getting it for Sons Properties. But that's where it's at right now. And then honestly, I have no problem sharing my phone number. So like I said, if you need to talk, if you feel like you're alone, you can always call me. If you have a deal, if you need me to help you find a buyer for it, call me. The number is 385-503-4344. So those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Sione, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for great stories. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And of course, I will share your information. And of course, I will see you around. And for you guys, next episode will be awesome too, like every episode, because my goal to share our common community. Of course, I can interview Grant Cardone. Trust me, I can. It was with everything, with my tenacity and power and stubbornness, whoever. But I prefer to hear stories that pretty much not equal to us, but stories what usually people don't hear. We know everything about lots of people in real estate, including Donald Trump and stuff like that, but nobody hears our stories. And my goal to bring the stories to you when you can relate and say, oh my gosh, this is me, this is me, this is me. That's all, guys, for today. I will see you in next episode.